You don't always explain why. You don't always say it out loud. But when an INFJ pulls away from someone, there's usually a reason. It doesn't happen suddenly. It happens after observing, feeling, and realizing something deeper. This person isn't safe. INFJs are naturally wired to be understanding. You see through masks. You listen carefully. You want to believe in people's best intentions. That's what makes you strong, but it's also what puts you at risk. When someone's energy starts to feel wrong, when their words don't match their actions, or when they make you question your own worth, something inside you shifts. Your inner warning system, that strong, quiet intuition, starts to signal, not here, not them, not again. You've probably stayed too long with people who drained you. You've given second, third, and 10th chances to people who didn't deserve your loyalty. But over time, you learn something important. Not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone can be saved. And not everyone is good for your nervous system, your values, or your peace. There are certain types of people INFJs avoid at all costs. Not because you're judgmental, but because when you've seen the pattern play out too many times, you finally believe what your body and intuition have been telling you all along. This kind of person hurts you. This video isn't about blaming others. It's about naming patterns. It's about helping you protect your peace without guilt. You're not cold for walking away. You're not harsh for setting boundaries. You're just learning to survive in a world that too often takes from people like you. Let's talk about the first kind of person INFJs know they need to stay away from. Person number 1. The narcissist, self-centered person. There's a reason INFJs often find themselves tangled with narcissists. It's not because you're weak. It's because you're exactly what they seek. You listen. You care. You reflect back their emotions. You give without asking for much in return. And for someone who's self-centered, that's the perfect setup for control. Narcissistic people crave attention and admiration. They often lack empathy, avoid accountability, and twist conversations to make themselves the center. At first, they can seem charming, confident, even magnetic. They know how to say the right things, especially to someone like you who wants connection and truth. But over time, the cracks show. You start to notice the subtle put-downs, the way your feelings are ignored, your needs dismissed. You find yourself exhausted after conversations, confused after sharing your thoughts, or questioning your own worth. That's not love. That's manipulation. What makes this so dangerous for INFJs is your habit of giving people the benefit of the doubt. You assume there's pain behind the behavior. You think if you just love hard enough, they'll change. But narcissists feed off that hope. They take, and when you finally speak up or say no, they turn cold, cruel, or controlling. You might try to explain your boundaries, only to be made to feel guilty. You might try to leave, only to be pulled back by apologies that feel more like performances than truth. And all the while, your energy gets drained, your voice gets smaller, and your heart starts to close off. That's why INFJs learn, often the hard way, to avoid narcissistic or self-absorbed people completely. It's not about hate. It's about protection. You know what it feels like to be used, manipulated, and discarded by someone who only saw you as a mirror. Now you protect your mirror. You don't let everyone near it, especially not those who are only looking to see themselves. Person number 2, the unauthentic, performative person. INFJs crave realness. It's one of the deepest parts of who you are. You want conversations that mean something, relationships that feel grounded, and people who speak with honesty, even if it's messy. That's why you quickly start pulling away when someone is clearly performing. The performative person is all about surface. They care more about being seen than being known. They speak in buzzwords, copy personalities, or shift depending on who's watching. Their social media is polished, their opinions follow trends, and their kindness feels off. Like it's for show, not for truth. INFJs can spot this energy almost immediately. It's not always something they can explain, but they feel it. The words might be kind, but the tone feels hollow. The compliments feel rehearsed. The conversation doesn't go anywhere. You leave feeling disconnected, even after smiling through it all. What makes this dynamic so frustrating is that INFJs don't expect perfection. They expect presence. They want to know who you really are, not the version you think will impress others. And when someone can't give that, the INFJ starts to shrink. You either go quiet or you start pretending too, just to avoid the awkwardness. But that never lasts. You know when you're faking. And eventually you pull away, not out of cruelty, but out of self-respect. You realize that being in the presence of someone who refuses to be real makes you feel invisible. Performative people are often unaware of the effect they have. They're focused on perception, not connection. And while they might be the center of the room, INFJs are in the corner, quietly checking out, emotionally and mentally. You'd rather have one awkward but honest conversation than 100 fake ones that go nowhere. And if you can't find that honesty with someone, you'd rather not waste your energy trying. Person number 3, the constant critic, harsh judge. INFJs are already hard on themselves. You overthink what you said, how you said it, how it might have been taken. You carry guilt easily, even for things that weren't your fault. So when you're around someone who constantly criticizes, picks apart, or judges, it hits twice as hard. The constant critic is someone who always seems to find what's wrong. They might disguise it as just being honest, but their words rarely feel helpful. They question your choices, mock your interests, or make you feel like your emotions are too much. And they rarely offer support, just silence or more judgment. At first, you might try to explain yourself. You might believe that if you show them your intentions, they'll back off. But critics don't want clarity. They want control. And they often pick people who are thoughtful and empathetic, because those people will stay and try to fix the relationship. That's where the INFJ gets stuck. You want peace. You want people to feel heard. But in return, you're slowly being chipped away. A small comment about your voice. A passive-aggressive reply. A cold look when you express something personal. Each one adds weight. You leave these interactions feeling smaller, less sure of yourself. And worse, you start to absorb the message. Maybe they're right about me. That's the most dangerous part, not the words themselves, but the way they get into your mind. INFJs avoid this type of person once they realize what's happening. Not to escape responsibility, but to protect the parts of themselves that are still healing. The parts that don't need another voice saying, "You're not enough." You're not afraid of growth. You're afraid of growing in soil that only feeds you with criticism. And that's not what you're here for. Person number 4, the energy vampire, needy person, NFJs are natural caregivers. You're drawn to people in pain. You listen, you give, you support, even when no one asks you to. It's part of your nature. But that same empathy makes you a magnet for people who don't give back. People who take and take and take. The energy vampire isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes they come to you quietly. With a problem. A crisis. A bad day that turns into a bad week, then a bad year. They rely on your patience. They expect your presence. And before you know it, their emotional weight becomes yours. You try to be strong. You tell yourself they just need someone. And maybe they do. But eventually, you start to notice the imbalance. You're always there for them, but when you need help, they disappear. Or change the subject. Or act uncomfortable with your feelings. You leave conversations feeling more tired than before. You avoid their calls but feel guilty. You tell yourself you're being selfish, even as your energy runs out. And that's the trap. INFJs feel responsible for other people's peace. But you were never meant to carry it all. The truth is, people like this often don't realize they're draining you. They've gotten used to you being strong, being available, being quiet. But you're not a lifeline. You're a person. With limits. INFJs eventually avoid these kinds of relationships because they learn the cost. You can't heal if you're constantly pulled into someone else's storm. You can't grow if your roots are tangled in someone else's chaos. You can't be well if you're always the one holding things together. You're not abandoning anyone. You're choosing not to abandon yourself. Person number 5, the conflict lover, drama seeker. INFJs don't fear conflict, they just don't feed off it. You're built for harmony, reflection, and resolution. You want to solve problems, not stir them up. So when someone brings chaos for the sake of attention, entertainment, or power, it's one of the fastest ways to lose you. The conflict lover lives for intensity. They pick fights for fun. They interrupt peace with gossip, arguments, or sudden emotional explosions. They might say things just to get a reaction, then act like you're the problem for responding. At first, INFJs might try to stay calm. You'll give them space, listen, even try to understand the root of their behavior. But eventually you realize they don't want resolution. They want reaction. And that's where you start to back away. These people throw emotional punches, then blame you for flinching. They cross lines, then say, "It was just a joke." They live in extremes, and INFJs don't. You prefer depth over drama, truth over tension, growth over chaos. But the deeper problem is what it does to your nervous system. INFJs are sensitive to tone, energy, and emotional shifts. Being around constant conflict doesn't just frustrate you, it burns you out. You start to feel on edge, even when nothing's happening. That's not peace. That's survival mode. Over time, INFJs learn to avoid these personalities because they realize that not every fight is worth joining, and not every loud voice deserves a reply. You protect your space. You step away. You choose not to live in someone else's storm just to prove that you can handle it. Because peace isn't a luxury for you. It's a need. And anyone who threatens it on purpose doesn't belong in your life. Person number 6. The dishonest, disloyal person. NFJs don't ask for much in relationships, just truth. Not perfection. Not constant agreement. Just honesty. Loyalty. Basic human respect. So when someone lies, betrays trust, or proves themselves unreliable, it doesn't just hurt. It breaks something deep inside. Dishonest people confuse INFJs the most. You want to believe people mean what they say. That when someone promises to show up, they will. That when someone says they care, they mean it. But over time, you learn that not everyone speaks the way you do. Some use words as tools, others as traps. It might start small, a white lie, a hidden detail, a shift in tone. But INFJs notice. You always notice. Even when you try to ignore it, the truth pulls at you. Your intuition won't let it go. You feel the gap between what's said and what's real. And when the truth finally surfaces, it stings. Not just because of what happened, but because of what it took from you. Your time, your hope, your trust. You don't give those things lightly. So when they're broken, the damage runs deep. Disloyalty hits just as hard. INFJs are fiercely loyal to the people they love. You show up. You defend. You stay, even when things get hard. So when someone talks behind your back, breaks a promise, or walks away when you need them, it doesn't just feel like rejection. It feels like a violation. After being burned this way once or twice, INFJs start guarding their trust. You no longer assume people mean well just because they say they do. You listen longer, watch closer, and the moment someone proves they can't be honest or loyal, you start to pull back. Not out of hate, out of clarity. INFJs avoid dishonest and disloyal people because they know what betrayal does to them. It doesn't just hurt, it changes you. It makes you question what's real. And you've worked too hard to build a life based on truth to let someone drag you back into confusion. If you've ever wondered why you pull away from certain people, even when you can't explain it, trust this, your intuition knows. Your nervous system knows. Your heart knows. INFJs aren't antisocial. You're not cold. You're not harsh. You just know what certain people do to your peace, your energy, your truth. And you've spent enough time being drained, doubted, and disrespected to let it keep happening. These 6 kinds of people aren't evil, but they are dangerous to someone like you, someone who feels deeply, listens fully, and shows up with their whole self. The more you understand the types of people who pull you off center, the more you can stay rooted in what's real. You don't owe anyone access to your mind or heart, especially not those who twist, drain, judge, or betray it. Your boundaries aren't mean. They're medicine. And the sooner you protect what matters to you, the more space you'll have for the people who actually deserve to be close. So think back, who among these have you let in before? Who made you question your worth, your instincts, or your calm? And what would it look like to finally let them go? Not with hate, not with drama, just with peace. Because that's what you came here to protect.